Okay, hey, good evening, Protectors. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. It's Thursday night, 7:30. Here I am live again. We got Coach Dustin returning back from vacation. Good to have you back, Dustin. Coach Brad, as usual, is here with us as well. So, listen, we're going to jump right in. We're going to cut to the intro here, but I'm going to just set up what we're going to talk about tonight. And tonight, actually, I just want to share a concept with you. And this is a concept. It's a diagnostic tool in our training. It's a great philosophy. It's a mantra to live by. There's a lot of things that can come out of this. So we're going to dive into this, unpack this, and I think you're going to get a lot out of this. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about the thing that can get you killed the quickest. Okay, so we're going to cut to the intro back in 30 seconds, and we're going to break down, unpack, and share with you the thing that can get you killed the quickest. Hey everybody, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Greg LeBuff, and I'm sharing insights for how I went from the victim of a brutal attempted murder to weaponizing my mind and body, mastering the tool of violence so that I can protect myself and my family from violent criminal assault, and how for the past 30 years, I've been helping good people just like you do the same. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. All right, okay. Now, I want to unpack, like I said, it's a lot of different things. It depends how you look at this, but we have a concept, right? We have a diagnostic tool. We have a mantra, and it is what's going to get you killed the quickest. Now, I'll just start it off because what I'm interested in is actually answering the question. That'll be one of the things that we're going to do. So I'm going to let both Dustin and Brad, in the back of your mind, I want you to think about not just what that term means to you, but I actually want you to think about what is the thing right now that will get you killed the quickest. So but we're going to come to that a little bit later in the podcast. So the first place we'll start is I'm gonna share one angle that we look at this, and I said that it's a diagnostic tool. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Think about it this way: anytime that you'd have a client or somebody new come in, and actually let me just use myself as an example. When I started this, why did I start this? I started this because I had a problem, right? This is how it starts. My problem was that I was almost beaten to death by violent predatory criminals. That was the problem. The problem was that I had been training in martial arts. I had been training as a combative athlete, and yet I was I was targeted in a random violent assault, bottled, beaten, unrecognizable, all that shit, right? And none of my training worked. Nothing that I was shown, none of my training that I'd been doing for well over a decade, the black belt, the sparring, none of it meant anything in a violent assault, because violence is a completely different fucking language. So I had a problem. So when I started, I was looking for a solution. And when I found guys, men, people that understood violence, right? You got to remember, you say, well, how did, they were the hand-to-hand combat instructors for the U.S. Navy SEALs. They were working with and trained SEAL Team 6. That's how you know they know what the fuck they're doing, because they were training men that went into harm's way. Now, yes, their training was just for their hand-to-hand combat, but that's what I needed. Okay, so when I started it, you think about, I had a problem. But do you think that there was only one area that they could fix? I only had one area, your problem is you just don't know how to punch. You don't know how to, whatever the fuck it is. You don't know how to ground fight. You don't know how to use sticks. You didn't know how to do knives. You'd never done mass attack. No. The whole thing was a fucking problem. So when you're at zero, everything's a fucking problem. If you don't know something, it's a fucking problem. So if you're missing a piece of information, well, that's a fucking problem. If you don't have the body mechanics, that's a fucking problem. If you don't have weight transfer, placement, accuracy, follow through, emotional content, spatial awareness, sensitivity, I can just go on and on and on and on. If you don't have any of those things, they're all a fucking problem. And when you start and you're at zero and you have no experience with it, you have nothing. So where do you start? Now, most people go, well, listen, where you start is determined by the art, right? Meaning that, well, what's the white belt curriculum? When I started, there was no white belt curriculum. They didn't, they didn't take me and go, well, Greg, everything's a problem, but we got to start you somewhere. So we're going to start you with our white belt curriculum, and you're going to learn a basic stance and hand positioning and movement patterns and blocks and all this bullshit. And then you're going to go from white, and you're going to get a couple stripes on your belt. And then after 6 to 8 months, you're going to get a different color belt. And then after blah, blah, blah. They didn't do that shit. Where they started was by diagnosing me, the individual. Right? They have the frame of reference. They understand combat, but they looked at me, the individual. So they didn't have a cookie cutter system. They looked at me and they diagnosed. And what was the criteria by which they diagnosed me? What is the thing that's going to get him killed the quickest? So they diagnosed that. Now, you understand how challenging that could be, how good you have to be, how educated your eye has to be to look at a beginner student who has nothing, no experience. They're at zero and everything is missing, but you have to go, what's the thing that's going to get them killed the quickest? And that's what they prescribed a remedy for. Now, this could be mindset. I'll keep using myself. The first thing that I needed was mindset. What my instructor recognized in me was that all of my paradigms, all of my beliefs about what violence even was, were all fucking wrong. Now remember, I was in a violent assault. So I knew the realities of it. I experienced it, but it doesn't mean I understood it. It just means I knew that it wasn't what I fucking thought it was. But that's a far cry from knowing what it was. And so that's where my journey started, was lecture-based. They had, my instructor realized there's no sense teaching you fucking anything because your beliefs, your paradigms, your perceptions, how you view violence, everything, even though you've had this experience, you have no idea how to interpret that experience. And so what will get you killed the quickest is a diagnostic tool that tells the instructor or tells the coach what to prescribe first. Where does the journey begin? Okay, so that's my first take on it. So again, you guys are thinking about answering your question of what's the thing that'll get you killed the quickest. We'll answer that later. But as far as the diagnostic tool and what I just said, what's your guys' take on that?
Just kind of thinking about how we've operated in the past with people, and a lot of the mindset with it is exactly everything that you said. And even just, it's like if you have 36 hours with somebody, if you have 3 days with somebody and they come in and you use this diagnostic tool, what's going to get them killed the quickest? When you think about it in terms of a time frame, like a weekend, maybe 2 weekends, whatever it is, and you're able to take them down that, like, kind of get them more ticks on the weaponized scale, right? You're making them more weaponized than they were before when they came in. Using this diagnostic tool is something that is going to, make sure that we do that. Make sure that if we never see these people ever again, we have 36 hours with them, 72 hours, whatever it happens to be, that they're infinitely safer for themselves and their families because we've identified what's going to get them killed the quickest, as opposed to being like, well, here's the first thing you need to know. Do you know what I mean? Like how you kind of explain things going through with the belts and so forth. It's like, no. This is what's going to get someone killed the quickest. Could be mindset, could be physical, could be wherever their predisposition is. But that is having that awareness and having that foundation when they leave us. If it was a short period of time, we know that we've weaponized them.
Yep, 100%. That makes total sense. Dustin.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have done a really good job explaining it, and like just to put it in even like really simple terms, it's essentially just learning how to prioritize things. Yeah. Like I was just trying to think of like another analogy outside of what we do, and it's like, okay, just imagine being. What's that?
I said like triage almost.
Yeah, essentially. And so I just thought about it, and I'm like, okay, an analogy, like, so if you're barreling down the highway at 100 kilometers an hour in a car, and the person in that vehicle does not know how to drive, it's like, what's more important, understanding how to work the signal light or how to work the brake? Yeah. And it's like, it's the exact same thing. It's like, well, clearly the brake, right? And it's the same with weaponizing or preparing people for violence. It's like, what thing is most likely going to save your life? And that's the thing we're going to teach you first. Is everything else important? The signal light, headlights, seat belts. Yeah, of course it is. But you have to pick the number one priority, start there and kind of almost work backwards. You know, kind of the opposite of what you see in law enforcement, where they have to work an escalating use of force continuum in dealing with violence. We go the exact opposite way. We start at the top and work our way down. And it's just another way of reprioritizing things in using this diagnostic tool that you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And let's be fair, or let's be clear, I guess, because we've already stated it, but just for clarity, you know, you have to have an educated eye, meaning that the only people that, like, well, listen, we're talking about, there's different levels to this. If you have someone that's very educated, that has been doing this a long time, training people a long time, understands, you know, is very fixed, like, again, law specificity. Like, for example, I just say I'm a totally shitty fucking martial artist. Yet I've been in martial arts for over 30 fucking years. But I'm a shitty martial artist, meaning that I don't give a shit about martial arts. I don't do martial arts for martial arts. So any of the things that have come from martial arts, which a lot of stuff does, obviously, I have no loyalty to martial arts. I don't practice it as a martial artist. We don't, all that shit. I'm only concerned with violence. So specifically for 30 years, studied violence, studied criminality, and have been training people to prepare for violence. Now, asocial violence, not antisocial aggression, asocial violence, okay? So when you have somebody that has been doing that for that long, like a mechanic, you got a guy that's, you know, for 30 years he's worked on cars and he's invested in his education and he studies cars and he studies the latest advancements and all these different things and problems. Now go one step further. Not only is he a mechanic, he's a mechanic that specializes in a certain vehicle, a certain model. Like he only deals with Ferraris or only deals with Fords or whatever it is, and specifically trucks. You get what I mean? Like you got someone that has an educated eye. They can sit in, you know, like if you look at, or I guess maybe people haven't heard, but you know, the 180 SOAR, which is like the unit in the military that is for, like, you have your tier 1 operators, like your SEALs and Delta and stuff. Well, they have pilots that in the 180 that are specialized, basically special forces pilots. So they're like the SEAL Team 6 of flying. So like helicopters, different things like that. And what I'm getting at is that these guys are so in tune with their aircraft. So like, for example, on a helicopter, part of what they'll do in their testing is they will take one of the helicopters and they will mechanically mess something up. They'll bend a rotor blade a couple degrees. They'll loosen something. They'll do things like that. And the pilots get in there and they can fire up their aircraft without taking off, whatever, but they can fire it up. And these guys can feel a vibration. These guys can say something's wrong with the rotor, something's off with this, something's off with this, something's off with this. Like, do you know how sensitive you have to be to your aircraft? Because the things that they do in these aircrafts, like, again, they are experts. And so they can diagnose very quickly what is going on. And imagine, here's the power. If you can figure out what the fuck is wrong, you feel a certain vibration or something just feels loose, but you can thin slice that and diagnose that. You can prescribe a remedy very fucking quickly, which increases your odds of minimizing any type of damage. Well, that's the same thing, right? So the educated eye of having an instructor or somebody that can look at you and recognize what you're missing. Like, where's the deficiency? Even though there might be tons of deficiencies. I mean, we're all a work in progress. No, this is not about perfection. We're just people training and working a process. But to have that kind of clarity is very powerful. And here's why it's so powerful. Here's another add-on to this, is that whether the person's aware of it or not, if somebody can diagnose the thing that'll get you killed the quickest, that means the thing where you're most vulnerable, the thing where you're most uncertain, even if you don't even know that you don't know. You don't even know what you don't know. But when somebody actually can put their finger on that, bring that to the forefront, and then prescribe and teach and get you working the remedy to that, what's the counter effect that happens? If somebody shores up, identifies, and then fixes the thing that'll get you killed the quickest, the return on that is you gain infinitely more certainty, more confidence, because your experience and capability and line familiarization and domain knowledge, all of those areas, they go up. And if you think about it, if for any of us, we can all have fear, right? So there's a situation and that causes me fear. But there is often something at the core that is really driving my fear. There's lots of peripheral things that are throwing more logs on the fire, but what is the core thing? Like, what really terrifies you? What are you really focused in on, and what's the meaning that you're attaching to it? And that is not easy to uncover. And so, again, I'm trying to share with people why this is such a powerful diagnostic tool, because the payoff of having somebody go, this is where you need to start. Like, again, for me, thinking back on it, like, it would have been insane for them to start teaching me the physical stuff before they had created the shift in my perception, before they had given me the understanding. Because, again, remember, after I was suffering from a lot of trauma because I didn't fucking understand what had happened to me. And things that were actually normal, physiological responses, mental and emotional and psychological thoughts and feelings, emotions and all that type of stuff. And you have triggers and all this type of shit. All of that stuff I was misinterpreting. So it was all just being amplified. And what they did was they knocked those dominoes down. They solved those problems. They educated me. And it's like hitting a trampoline. You're going down, and then all of a sudden, because they did it the right way, I mean, you shoot up. And that's what I want people to understand. It's such a powerful diagnostic prescription tool because, again, if it's the thing that'll get you killed the quickest, it's because it's the area that is weakest, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, or all of them. And when that gets solved and you start gaining certainty, confidence, and capability and understanding and all that stuff, again, it changes you dramatically, which is, and you guys maybe want to talk about it or throw something in on it, but Brad kind of alluded to it. It's how in 3 days, it's how in a very short period of time you get dynamic results. It's just super expedient, and people are always commenting saying, "Fuck, this was like, I didn't even know what I needed, but I can tell this was exactly what I needed. This is exactly what was missing." Like, their confidence goes way the fuck up because they were not subjected to an arbitrary, eclectic white belts. Beginners start at white belt, and we go from white belt, and you got to work your way through. Like, that's the art, that's the process. That, again, that is a teaching curriculum that was brought about because of business practices, not functional training. And I don't know if people understand that. People think like, oh, that's the way it was back in the day. You had to go through this and this and this and this, and you had learned through discipline and honor and stuff. Yeah, when there was no war and people had time to do that, it became an intellectual exercise of discipline and all this other type of stuff. If you and your family are defending your lands, and you might have to fight tonight, tomorrow, the next day, you're not teaching your family from the white belt. What's the thing that'll get them killed the quickest? And let's fucking fix that problem. Let's shore that up to try to give them the best odds of surviving tonight's battle. And if they survive tonight's battle, then tomorrow we're going to wake up, and what are we going to do? What question are we going to answer? What's the fucking thing? Yeah, what's the thing that's going to get them killed the quickest now?
Yeah. Even just listening and just kind of thinking about it to add is like, it really keeps the front focus in mind, weaponizing against violence. And, you have the very specific goal or mission command that you're achieving. And it just really kind of makes me go back to like something that we mentioned in other podcasts is like, there's no filler. You can't have filler when you're focused on what's the thing that's going to get you killed the quickest. Because it's always like the most important thing to get you from point A to point B, to weaponize against violence without any of the other distraction that could come in that people are like, oh, I'd like to learn this. It's like, you don't need that. Like, you're here for a very specific reason. It's a weaponize against violent criminal assault. This is what you need.
100%. Matter of fact, when you said that, it brought up this thing again where it's just expanding off what you said, but you got to fuck, like, and dislike. Yeah. Nobody gives a shit what you like and what you fucking like. Like, you don't like, like one of the things in our training is like, if I asked you guys, like, tell me your favorite part of training. What's your favorite thing to do in training? I already know your guys' answer. I don't have a fucking favorite thing. It's all all my fucking favorite. And even then, it's like, well, to use the word favorite is kind of misleading. What you're meaning is that it's all fucking fun. Like, I enjoy it all, but I have no fucking favorites. You get what I mean? Why? Why don't you have a favorite?
This is all necessary.
Because what we get off on the most is the growth. You talked about that, just that ability just to feel like you've achieved something. You come to a program, a weekend, a training session, whatever it is. It's like the thing that's going to make you feel the best is when you realize, like, man, what I did today made me better. It made me safer. And so just learning a new random technique that's not based on any kind of context is not going to give you that same feeling. Like, are you better? Well, yeah, okay, but incrementally. But every time we train, like, how often is someone there having like an aha moment, like a true breakthrough where you've like literally taken it next level? You can't do that just by doing, like you said, the white belt protocol. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Everybody gets the same 4 steps in the same order every time. You don't have massive breakthroughs. You'll incrementally get better. And like you said, yeah, okay, great. But that doesn't work in real life. Do you know what I mean? In times of war, in times of, potential violence, which is every day. It's like, you don't have time for that. You need something more expedited. And it's like that process of finding, okay, what is going to get you killed the quickest? When someone finds that for you, hands it to you, says, this is what you need to know, and you do it, it's like, boom, you have these massive breakthrough moments. So,
yeah.
Well, even just like reflecting back on the years going through the process, I know, Dustin, this will resonate with you, is like, we're working something, we're like, okay, like, let's keep working it. And then all of a sudden we show up to a program and it's like, hey, well, this is what we're probably going to do. It's like, no, fuck that. You're not doing it anymore. It's like, what? It's like, you don't get that traction. You don't get that, like, you guys are good at, like, you guys, that has served you. You guys have evolved into that. You don't need that particular thing anymore, because what's going to get you killed the quicker is this. And it's like, well, that's what we're doing then. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't get attached to, like, it's not, I think people have a hard time because they want to do the things that they're good at to have that success, right? But again, when you have the mission and the focus of Weaponized Against Violence, is like, well, what's the ultimate goal? Well, protect about getting killed. So let's safeguard against those vulnerabilities, right?
Yeah, well, if you think about what Dustin had said too, like we talk about, like, we have no, like, what's your favorite thing? Well, we don't have a favorite thing. Like, and what are you working? Every time you come in, you go, what am I working? Every day you're working the thing that'll get you killed the quickest. Like, you're always, that is always how we diagnose. And that is exactly what Brad just said. Like, you say, oh, I'm working this thing, so I'm working my ground game, I'm working this, I'm working weapons, I'm working footwork or angulation. And then all of a sudden you go, well, fuck, like, I didn't master that yet. Yeah, I was getting better at it for sure, but why the fuck are you changing it on us, Greg? Well, I'm changing it because you went, like, again, here's the thing, right? You guys, after 20 years, you're not ever going to zero, okay? Because you're not at zero. But you went from 0 to formidable. And then people say, well, what about these guys that are like 20 years, 25 years, whatever it is? You're going from formidable to tactical. But the thing is that, like, when you go on a deep dive into your body mechanics, let's say, or into your timing, or into your groundwork, or whatever one aspect, you're going from, like, you're already formidable in it. You already have foundation, strategy, tactics, and tools. 2 decades of skill. But that is now you're sharpening that edge to get towards that high level tactical. But while you're doing that, and it might be a week, it might be 3 months, it might be 6 months, who knows? You're going in that because you're like, this is the thing that'll get me killed the quickest. I need to fucking put a fine edge on this thing. While you're doing that, something else that already has a great edge on it is in the sheath. Like, it's being used, but it's like, so what happens when you use something, but you don't specifically sharpen that edge? It dulls a little bit. You got to remember, violence it's not boxing. You're not just boxing every day, box, 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 box. It's not shooting where every day, shoot, 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 shoot. And yes, you can shoot long guns and short guns and all that stuff. But the point is, you have to go from mass attack and ground and stand up and close quarter and edged weapons and impact weapons and percussion instruments and environment training and footwork. Like, there is a plethora of shit. All very simple, all straightforward, but there's a lot of stuff. So you're always like, the second something else falls off or gets below, it's like a warning light goes off. We see it and we shift gears and we're like, boom, let's put an edge on this. And so you're constantly put an edge on this. Now put it down. And you say, well, why? I'm on a roll. If I just keep working this for the next 8 months or the next year, I'm going to have the sharpest edge here. Yeah, but everything else is fucking dull. Now, everything else is this thing now is the thing that's going to get you fucking killed. Because Murphy's Law states what? You got a guy who's the best kicker in the world. You're going to get into a violent situation. It's going to happen in an environment like a fucking elevator where kicks are useless. Kicks are the dumbest fucking thing you could ever do. Now you're glad that you spent fucking 10 years honing these beautiful kicks. And yet all of a sudden you get attacked, you're in your fucking bed and someone jumps on top of you, starts beating you with a lead pipe and you're underneath your blankets. And what are you thinking? If I can get a leg free, you know what I mean? Like if I can get a leg free, I'm going to kick this guy. Like
it's funny how the thing that will get you killed the quickest is the thing that's the most imperative for you to train. But if you take it too far, like you're talking about, it becomes the exact thing that will get you killed because you should have been working something else.
Something else, yes.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Like
yeah.
it's funny, but it's so important for people to understand that. Like just because it'll get you killed the quickest today doesn't mean that's your problem always and forever.
See,
right? Which is what you're talking about, is that ability to recognize when it's time to shift gears. And it's not at mastery.
Yeah.
It's just you've got it to where it's no longer the number one priority.
Yeah. See, if I could draw this out for people, if I had my whiteboard here, I would draw diagnose. And in quotations, how do I diagnose? What's the thing that's going to get him killed the quickest? And you have to remember, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, combination of, isolate, whatever it is. So diagnose, what's the thing going to get him killed the quickest? Prescribe. Here's the solution, here's what we're going to work. Here's the training methodology, here's the drills, here's the scenarios, we're doing that. And then what happens? Diagnose. What's the thing's going to get him killed the quickest? Prescribe. Diagnose. Prescribe. Diagnose. It's a loop. It's a closed loop. And there is no end, right? It's a closed loop. You diagnose, you prescribe. And then what are you doing every single time you train? You're diagnosing. We're looking at, this is why like when we come in and train, we'll do things like called big picture training, where even though we might be saying, we diagnose this is the thing, this is the area we got to put the work in. So now we prescribe it. This is how we're going to do the work. Every time we come in, okay, guys, let's do this, let's do a little bit of all this stuff, big picture, blah, blah, blah. We're always diagnosing. Show me this, show me that, show me this flow, show me that flow, show me this. And then we're looking going, yep, the area that we are still working in is not only improving that specific area, but it's having residual. Other things are getting better. And say, matter of fact, boy, all that work that we did a month ago where we diagnosed and prescribed that other area, man, did that ever change? Like that is looking really fucking good. But every day, diagnose, prescribe, diagnose, prescribe. And so we might diagnose, prescribe, and then we re-diagnose and we stay on it. Because people would be like, well, Jesus, every day they come in, you could theoretically diagnose something different and change what you're working on, and then you never get any time into something. Believe it or not, it does not work that way. The thing that'll get you killed the quickest, remember, you're not picking something that you just go, well, I don't know what to do tonight. Well, this is fun. People really enjoy this. Let's do this tonight. Like you're always like, listen, what's going to get you killed the quickest is this. And you're telling this is what it is. And people are like, yeah, you're 100% right. Like once it's identified for you, it becomes easy to go, you're fucking 100% right. Matter of fact, when I think about it, I have fear, anxiety, I have self-doubt, of all these things that I don't even fucking know what I don't know. And so people really want to work it. And that, you know, it's like, it's kind of like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like you bite into an apple and it's like, you kind of know when to stop eating. Like, you know what I mean? Like when that apple is, you know, tasting good, like you just keep taking bites of whatever it is. And then you kind of get full. Like then you kind of, you know what I mean? Like everything has a natural life to it. You can feel it and you can see it because the results start to happen. And so again, people just have to understand this diagnose, prescribe. There is no set time limit on it. I guess maybe an analogy might be if Dustin prescribed me, you know, something, an antibiotic or something. Now, those can have a life cycle. Say you got to take these 3 times a day for 2 weeks, whatever it is. But it's like if I started taking it, you take it until it's like you start getting better. That's kind of how this works. And then the doctor's re-diagnosing you and saying, yeah, we're good. We can stop that now. But now we're going to have to treat this. Okay, that's good. Like, it's a very live, fluid thing. And that's where that coaching or the personal mentoring is very, very critical to the process. Because somebody doesn't just go, here's what I diagnose, here's what I prescribe, see you in 6 months. Or see you in a month, or see you in 3 weeks. Like, it doesn't, you know what I mean? You have a constant relationship and a constant rapport, and that's what makes the diagnose, prescribe, cycle work really, really well. And the other side I'll throw in off that is that's why group class sucks. Group class is there's no professional fighter on the planet that is group class trained. Like, it's exactly that. It's fucking laughable. Now, some might go, I started in a group class. Yeah, when you were fucking 10. Or you did it for the first 2 or 3 years, and then every fucking gym has what? Oh, Friday night, it's the fight team. It's the competition team. And they do what? Special training. And it's different than group class training. And it's typically a fuck of a lot smaller. Right? Or they'll do that, and that'll be the fucking wannabes, the total amateurs. But when you got the pro fighters, they have fight camps. And yes, they'll sometimes go to a group class. Well, here's the thing. What do we know about pro fighters that train inside of group classes? Like, they're doing their own fight camp, but for extra bodies and extra rounds and extra time, really what they want is fucking cannon fodder. They need extra bodies. Yeah. What happens to those guys that do that? What's that?
Yeah. They just want punching bags.
They want punching bags. But what happens to them a lot of times?
Which one? The fighter or the punching bag?
The pro fighter. Oh no, it's not the punching bags. They get some. But what happens to the pro fighter? I'll tell you what, they get fucking hurt. They get fucking injured. Why? Because they go to group class with a bunch of fucking beginners, and they're wrestling with them, and they're training for a fight, and they're wrestling slow, and the motherfucker panics because he doesn't want to get tapped out, and he bucks and he flips, and he fucking dislocates their shoulder, and now they have to cancel their fight. And that's not a hypothesis. That's exactly what happened to Tom. Why? Because you have to be careful who the fuck you're training with, because beginners, they don't have fucking control. They wrestle, and you got a big guy that's wrestling, he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's spastic, and he doesn't want to get tapped out, and he's got his ego to worry about. Pro fighters need professional trainers. They have professional sparring partners. It's only the amateurs that have to deal with amateurs. And group class is not a great way, that's not how pros train. And so for us, we're dealing with violence. So you're a professional fighter, you get in the ring and you lose a match. Okay. Does that impact your career? It can. Does it impact your life? Well, as far as your career goes, maybe, but you don't end up dead typically. You're training people for violence. Yeah, I know what we should do. Let's get a class, and let's get 30 or 40 people in that class, and all different shapes and sizes, all different predispositions, all different things. So all 40 people in the class have something different that'll kill them quickest. But let's just teach them all this thing and let them all conform to our process instead of the process conforming to them. So you have no diagnostic tool. What is a profession? If Tiger Woods, I don't follow golf at all, but whoever the big golfer is now, but if Tiger Woods went to a group class where they just taught some arbitrary, might be albeit high-level technique, and say, well, I'm just going to teach this swing technique, and I'm going to teach it to you 10 pro golfers. He has a private coach. He goes to the very best people in the world who study him, who hook him up to machines and measure this and do this, and they're making micro adjustments to his game, breaking something down and rebuilding him back up. I think people can kind of fathom how much time, money, effort, and focus is put into that. You know what they're doing? They are diagnosing the thing that's going to get him better the quickest. Our version of that is diagnose the thing that'll get you killed the quickest. And if you're doing self-defense, if you're doing group class self-defense, you are getting 7-Eleven self-defense. You're getting watered down self-defense. There is no way around that. If I was teaching group classes, then that's what I would be teaching people. You can't say otherwise. Now, you could say it's better than nothing. Okay, but say that. But say, well, this is better than nothing. But is this the best way? No. The reason you do group classes is because it's the financially feasible way to try to earn a living teaching self-defense. Because A, most people don't want to spend anything more than $99 for 3 months. They need a free uniform, free t-shirts. You better have, nicely sanitized mats. A steam room or a weight room would help as well. So that way they could work out on top with their $99 for 3 months. Whatever's closest to my house, most convenient hours. I mean, it's pandering to a bunch of people that just want to get out of the house. Like, you're not pro. And any man, like, say, well, I'm not a professional fighter. Any man that is a fucking man, any man whose wife and children look to him to defend them, understand you are a professional. You fucking better. You might not train like a professional. You might not recognize yourself as a professional, but understand the risk, and you should understand that you need to be a professional. You have to train somewhere that is serious about fucking training. And that is diagnose what the fuck is going to get you killed the quickest and rectify that fucking problem in the most expedient manner possible, and continue to diagnose, prescribe, and keep on fucking doing that until you go from 0 to fucking formidable. In violence, 0 to formidable. And then if you hit that spot and you're like, okay, that's it, this is not a lifestyle thing for me, good. Fine. Live the rest of your life as a formidable man. If you are into this shit, go from formidable to tactical. Then you continue like what you guys have done, like what we're doing. But it's like, it's just, there's not even a question. Yet most people you don't hear, fucking group class and shit, right? And the reason that's important to talk about is because ask yourself, how are they diagnosing? They're not. They are just prescribing. Come on in. Here's our prescription for how we teach self-defense. This is like you doing an 8-week course. You're doing a 3-month course with us. It's the beginner self-defense program. And so every class is prescribed for every individual who could ever walk in there. It doesn't matter what the fuck you got going on. Nothing about you is taken into consideration. It is just, here's our prescription. Start doing this. Where it is completely, well, it's amateur. I believe it's negligent, because if people actually need to learn these skill sets, it is the most inefficient way, it's the dumbest way to do it. So, anyways, there's my little rant. I see there's nothing to add to that, so we'll press on to the next part of this. They're just like, yeah, I agree. Okay, diagnose. The thing that'll get you killed the quickest. First, it's a diagnostic tool. The next thing, and Brad kind of actually started to allude to this a little bit, but the next portion of this that I think is really important is it does keep you focused on the why. Like, what do you train for? And actually, Dustin, we've kind of already touched on this a little bit, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. But I'm just going to go personal for this. We have a saying that kind of, it fits with this right now. And it's, I'm only as good as the last time I trained. I don't care that I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm only as good as the last time that I trained. Now, what I mean by that is that because I trained today, and listen, whether it was 30-minute protocol today, 15-minute protocol, or an hour, hour and a half, and then teaching a couple privates, whatever it is, whatever time that I got in today, if it's a 15 minutes of reading something, studying something, psychology, whatever it is, it improves me. It runs the stone across the edge and sharpens the edge. And here's the cool thing. What makes it twice as effective is that I'm only as good as the last time I trained. Well, why even train today, Greg? Because I recognize that there's a 1,000 different ways that I could get murdered walking out my door today, or that violence could find me or my family. There's people in this world, if you give them half a chance, they're going to be willing to destroy you or what you love, the people you love. So I'm only as good as the last time I trained. And then what I did was I'm like, what did you do today? Why did you decide to read this today, study this today, or work this today, or move? Because I asked myself, what's the thing that'll get me killed the quickest? That is my why. I don't want to die today. I don't want to get fucking murdered. I've been down there. I don't want to do that. So it always connects me to, why do you need to train? Because there are things that could kill me today. There are things that could, aid my attackers in my demise. I'll give you an example. Sometimes I wake up and you're distracted and I'm thinking a lot about work, or I'm thinking about something else personal that's going on in my life. And all of a sudden I'm driving around or I'm running around, you're doing your day, you're picking the kids up and stuff, and then it hits me. I do like a quick observe and report, meaning, where am I at? And I recognize you're super fucking distracted. You're super off scale emotionally. This is happening. This is sad or depressing or frustrating or emotional, whatever it is. In that moment, I recognize this shit can get you killed. Like, be in the fucking moment. Live in the moment. Be present in what you're doing. Whether that's with your family, whether that's work, whether that's whatever, but get in here, because distraction can kill you. And that question is always with me. It keeps me focused on my why. I want to live in this world as a protector. I want to be ready, real, resilient, relentless, and ruthless. I want to be not only a provider, but a protector for my family. So that question, you're only as good as the last time you trained. And then I always ask, what's the thing get me killed the quickest today? I've had many days where, you know what? What I need to do today is be in the fucking moment. Like, that's what I need to do. I need to be present, because when I'm present, I'm infinitely more powerful than when I'm distracted. You know, sometimes it's like I need to rest my body, I need to stretch my body, I need to train, I need to work this, I need to pick up a stick and move, I need to connect with the knife. I need to be, I'm feeling, I've had, we've all had days, but you feel a little sad, you feel a little depressed, and therefore you feel weak because you're having self-doubt. And you think, in this moment right now, if a threat stepped in front of me, I need absolute fucking certainty. I need to tap into ruthlessness. I need to have, unwavering fucking bulletproof confidence. And yet I'm walking around today and I feel like I can just feel doubt. And it's in my posture. And it's like, that thing's going to get me killed the quickest. And so it always keeps me connected to my why in every day of my life. And so it's, again, now it's still kind of diagnostic, but it's self-diagnostic. The first thing we talked about is external diagnostics. Somebody, a coach, a mentor, somebody looking at you and helping you by saying, this is the thing, this is what I'm seeing. And this is why we always have to be around other warriors that have an educated eye, because they are always watching us. They're always evaluating. They're always diagnosing us. But maybe if you guys want to share how you use this concept for self-diagnostic or on a personal level, and how that influences your life, and whether you do it daily or you do it weekly, or if it's just always there. But that's how it plays into my life 100%, is I'm always asking myself that question across every aspect of my life.
Yeah, one thing I'll throw in, because it ties to what you just talked about, Greg, about, making sure you stay in the moment, not being distracted. When you asked us, and maybe I'm jumping the gun in the podcast here, but you asked us in the beginning, like, what's the thing that's going to get you guys killed the quickest? And so as I sat here and sort of started to think about that, I was just kind of like, and I was not thinking about it in a training perspective, like, because obviously you can ask yourself that question, that's how you choose what you want to train that day. I looked at it as more like, okay, if I go out right now and go somewhere, what's going to get me killed the quickest out there? And the thing that kind of hit me, I kind of went through a couple different words. First word that hit me was like, if I get lazy. And I'm like, what do I mean by lazy? I'm like, well, if I don't do what I know that I need to do, and I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like, and it just comes down to like denial, which is kind of what you were touching on with being in the moment. I'm like, if I look at, we've been doing this for a really long time. So there's not a whole lot of things out there that's going to surprise us. Do you know what I mean? We know what to do. So our biggest mistake is going to be to not do what we know. And the only reason that would happen is if we let the disease of denial creep in. Do you know what I mean? So you're out there living your life, and it's like, do you let those little bits of denial impact your behaviors, your strategies, the way that you operate through society? Because when that happens, it's like, that's what will get me killed the quickest. Because I'm not doing the things I know I should be doing, or not doing it in the way I should be doing it to keep me and my family the safest. So for me, it's like that's what hit me, is like, it's totally denial. We all work on denial all the time and have for years and years, but we all still have those moments where, and sometimes it's not even conscious, and all of a sudden you catch yourself and you're like, oh shit, like that was in denial right there. I totally did something that's not in alignment with what I believe and what I know. And if I would have got called on that in that moment, I might have been in trouble. So for me, that's one way I use it. But
Oh, that's great. That's 100%. I love that. And just to clarify, the concept that you referred to and that you operate off of is oftentimes people know what to do, but they don't do what they know. And that's exactly what you were just talking about. Is like you have the training, you have the education. The thing that it can get you killed the quickest in your life is not doing what you know, and that is massive,
Yeah,
right? To
totally.
recognize that. So that was really really good. Brad, why don't you share what yours is or what you've come up with?
Hey, you know what? It's funny because I wrote down one of the things. I wrote down two things. One from one perspective and one from another, and one is not being in the moment. And exactly what you guys are just saying. And it's like, and I'm kind of thinking about it, I'm like, oh, well, we all kind of have this underlying thing, but it's those life moments that, that we can get caught up in. And if we're not in the moment, that's where that vulnerability lies in. But it's funny because it was never a physical thing, even my second thing, which was, it's actually my first thing, the not being in the moment was one of the second things I wrote down. But the first thing that I wrote down was from a little bit of a different perspective of that, and that was fighting the man. I find that if for whatever, and I think they kind of, for me, now that I even say it, they kind of go hand in hand, because if you get distracted, you might get attacked in that life moment, and you might get sucked into fighting the man as opposed to fighting his objective, right? And I know that's something that I've been working on during our training, is like, well, making sure that I'm able to efficiently attack the objective and fight on the objective and not the man, right? So, those are just when I first kind of was answering that question is where my head went with.
Yeah. And just clarification, what Brad's talking about is fighting through strategy. Strategies is how we attack the objective, not fight the man. So he's not in that conventional fight sport competition, gladiator to gladiator, mono to mono bullshit, right? So yeah, 100%. And again, being in the moment is, again, it's super powerful. And so you see the connectedness of how this diagnostic tool, self-diagnosing, as well as having somebody else, a peer group, that as an educated eye that is also diagnosing and prescribing. It's so important that we're coming at this from multiple different angles to make sure that we are always actually identifying the things that can get us killed the quickest, right? And that is in our personal life, that is in our training, that is across the board, okay? And one thing too, just because we have talked about being in the moment, we talked about making sure that we do what we know, not succumbing to denial and all that kind of stuff. Even just another one that I am using that is very, very simple that I think a lot of people can relate to. But again, it's how it changes. When I was, a little younger, even go back 5 years, maybe even closer to 8 years, but let's say between the 5 to 10 year mark, I never really worried about injury because I'd been, obviously at that time been training 20 something years, and I've been very blessed, knock on wood, that I've had very, very few injuries. I've had a few little injuries. Most of even the few injuries that I had were actually occurred outside of training. They weren't training related injuries. I've had a couple, but they were, again, short-term things. As I am now 51, I know, and by no means is that old, and I feel great. My body feels great, like moving all this stuff. Like, everyone has aches and pains, but I recognize that moving forward over the next 2-3 decades, injury is something that can take me out, because as you get older, it's kind of like drinking. When you're young, you could drink, wake the fuck up, be hungover, and drink again. You know what I mean? As you get older, you're like, you don't just bounce out of the bed after you had a couple nights of drink or a night of drinking, you know what I mean? So you slow down a little bit, and you definitely understand that it's going to take more time for recovery. Well, injury is the same way. And so I really am doing a lot more prehab, because again, diagnose, well, injury would be the thing that could take you out. Because imagine if you get an injury in your 50s or 60s, that injury could put you out for 3-4 months, 5 months. And it could be severe enough even where it's hard to even train through the injury. So it's just such a powerful thing to be like, I'm diagnosing it. So I'm doing a lot more prehabbing of my body, not rehabbing, Not waiting till I get an injury. I'm prehabbing, making sure that I'm more balanced in my muscle development and all that type of stuff, doing, stability and proprioceptor training and all this unilateral training, all of these kinds of things that are very important for people that move athletically and dynamically under force. These are just smart things. And if I'm doing these things, I can already tell you that in the last 5 years, 3 years, 5 years, what a difference it's made in my training, in my body, in my health, and not just for training, for my family, playing kids, like just overall, longevity of life, health of life. So again, the diagnose, prescribe, diagnose, prescribe, diagnose, prescribe. It's a circle. It's constantly ongoing. And again, I have times where I'm really focused on my prehabbing, and then times when it drops a little bit more to a maintenance cycle because something else has to come to the forefront. So it's that same secular thing where you're up and down, like you're constantly riding the ebb and flow and balancing. But diagnose, what's going to get me killed the quickest? Prescribe. Diagnose, prescribe, and you're just kind of constantly, and after so many years of doing it, you really find a sweet spot where you just, you can really keep things moving forward. So that's just another kind of way to give people an example of how powerful this diagnose prescribe process is. So, okay, we're probably like there's another 1 or 2 sections, but it's probably going to take us another half an hour to fully flush those out. So I think that instead of diving into something where we can maybe have to rush through it, we'll kind of look towards wrapping this conversation up. But I would end it kind of this way. Hopefully people have an understanding that if you have a mentor, you need people with an educated eye, somebody that has high ground, right? There's like they're looking down, and because they've been there, done that, they're educated, law specificity, this is what they do, their area of expertise, and they are coaching / mentoring, not group class teaching, coaching and mentoring you personally. So they are diagnosing and prescribing and moving you through. As they're doing that, they are teaching you the process of diagnosing and prescribing yourself. And again, the fundamental criteria, it's not the only criteria we use for diagnosing and prescribing, but one of the fundamental core ones, the immutable concept, is what's the thing that's going to get you killed the quickest? So as you're moving through and you're doing that, and now you're learning to self-diagnose, okay, what you come to is the fact, the understanding that there are universal, right? There's a universal truth to what is the thing that will get people killed the quickest when it comes to violence, specific to people that are at zero. When you have, and this is what I'll say, if you're a man that is 30 years plus, you have no experience in violence, and you have limited time to dedicate to training, I can tell you with 99.99% certainty 4 core things that'll get you killed the quickest. Now, these are not the only things, right? Because there still is the personal side of it, of needing to see, okay, who is this individual? What are their specific attributes? But before you even get to that phase of actually saying, okay, let me see you move, there are 4 areas that people 30 plus, men 30 plus, with no experience and limited time to put into their training, there's 4 core things. We call those the big 4 dominoes. We talked about in our podcast a little bit before. Those 4 things have to be resolved. And we created a program called the Protector Free Line. And the Protector Free Line is a free training stream that we offer people that solves what'll get you killed the quickest. That's the whole mission of why I put this out there, is I wanted to say, okay, I'm going to create a free thing that is going to solve what'll get people killed the quickest. And the 4 areas, I call them the 4 big dominoes, the 4 areas, the first one is people do not understand the language of violence, much like I went when I started. You don't even understand that violence is its own language. It's not sport, it's not martial art, it's its own language. The second is people do not understand the realities of the self-defense laws in Canada. They don't understand actual case law. They do not understand their legal rights. And if you don't understand your actual legal rights, you're gonna operate off fucking ignorance. And that is going to impact what you do, because you're going to be terrified to do anything because you don't want to get in fucking trouble with the law. You don't want to get a conviction or something like that. So that's the second thing. The third thing is people don't understand the sequencing of violence. They've never been taught. They don't understand what violence is. They don't understand. They don't have a system to measure it, so they cannot read it. It's like driving and not understanding traffic lights. You don't know when a light's going to turn red. You think it's random when it's clearly not. There's a sequencing to it. So that's the third one. And the fourth one is we've never been taught how to actually stay in control of our physical, mental, and emotional bodies under the stress and threat of death, violent confrontation. People lose control. They don't know how to regulate. Okay? And how do I know this? Because all four of these areas were four core problems that I had. I didn't understand these. These are the four things Dustin didn't understand. Brad didn't understand. Every man that I've trained, man, I said 30 plus, not 18. Because at 18, most kids don't give a fuck. They don't care about it. 30 plus. Why? Because typically when you start getting your 30s, you start having other people that you need to protect. That's why we say 30 plus. But when you have no experience, these are the things you don't even know. So I'm saying that because to end this conversation, we shared with you the power of this diagnostic tool and how we use it to weaponize our minds and bodies. But I also want you to understand that if you were going to do nothing else, right? There's four areas that I can solve. And if we knock these four dominoes down, if we shore this up where you go, fuck, I get this. I did not know this. Now I know this. You're going to be infinitely safer. You're going to be better at protecting yourself and your family, even if you do nothing else on top of that. And it's fucking free. Right? And you know why it's free? Because not only what I went through, but I don't want to go to another funeral of a husband, a father, and a friend. Right? Because, again, one of my friends, Wyatt Lewis, black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, competed in mixed martial arts, this guy was tough, talented, super nice guy, was fucking murdered. Stabbed 5 times. You can get good at the wrong thing. And there was dominoes that did not get knocked down. Training in martial arts does not ask and care about the thing that'll get you killed the quickest. And in the street, in the real world, violent predators are looking to identify the thing that they can use to kill you the quickest. And that's where you got to flip that. We're asking, what'll get me killed the quickest? Bad guys are out there going, how can I kill them the quickest? How can I exploit them the quickest? How can I manipulate them the quickest? How can I fuck them up and destroy them the quickest? Yeah, they think fucking evil. You know what'll fuck that guy up? That guy's in fuck this guy this. Go there and fuck his wife up. Go there and fuck his kids up. You get what I mean? Like, they're thinking fucking evil. So we have to flip this shit and say, what's the thing that's going to get us killed the quickest? So if you're at all interested in this, it's fucking free. There's 0 barrier to entry. It's literally the effort required is to actually watch a fucking video. A few hours. It won't take you the years and the obsessive time, money, and travel that I had to spend. I'll tell you that fucking much. So it's the lowest barrier to entry.
If you're listening to this part of the podcast,
yeah.
Just go there now. Because there's no reason
go there
why
now. Like, I don't get it. Like, there's no sales involved. It's just literally to fucking answer these questions for you. But head to our website, awakentheprotector.ca. You can see it in the bottom right-hand corner. Just go there, scroll down, you'll see Protector free line, click on it, and the courses are all there. You can just sign up and take the courses. You'll own the courses for life. You can go through them as many times. All the information's there. But that's what it is, okay? So that is one of the people often, because we don't market our classes. I'm not trying to sell shit. That's not why we're doing these podcasts and putting this stuff out there. So if you want, one of the ways that we are helping people is through our Protector free line. We are solving what'll get you killed the quickest. Okay, absolutely free. So head there, check it out, and you're not going to regret it. So, anyways, All right, guys, anything else that you want to throw in on this conversation?
Nope, I think I'm good.
All right, Brad, you're good?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. All right, everybody, that is it then. We're going to wrap it up here tonight. Thanks again, Coach Dustin, Brad, Coach Brad. Appreciate you guys as always. Everybody that watches, shares, comments. When you guys email, text, send your feedback, it's always appreciated. We look at every single one of them and, respond if there's a question. So, again, please share. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, Facebook if you want. Just that's how we're growing this, is organically. And every time you guys, if you head over to wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, take a few seconds, make sure you subscribe, leave a quick review. If we've hopefully over-delivered and are passing on information that you appreciate and enjoy, it helps tremendously if you can give us a 5-star rating if you feel we deserve it. That's what allows new people to find us and join us on our kind of mission here to help weaponize people. So that is it, everybody. Until next time, stay safe, stay weaponized. We'll chat again soon, everybody.